What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Tom of Thank You Scientists. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you here.
Dude, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, extraordinary performance last night. You definitely made the Gramercy Theater super fun, and it was super awesome. You guys and Intervals and Crypto Deer and everybody just killed it. So excellent performance.
Yeah, that was a fun show, and the smoke alarm was a little icing on the cake. I've never had that happen at a show before. That was
Yeah,
pretty funny.
I was surprised too because like I've seen shows where there was more fog utilized and it wouldn't set the alarm off, but that's how brutal you guys were. Every band that plays after you now is just a poser. But
Right. I don't know if I would take that one to the bank, but
fair enough, fair enough. But thank you for not only continuing to tour during these times, but also you gave us some new music. We got a Plague Accommodations, which just came out last month. Was this EP intended to just hold people over while we wait for like a full length follow up to Terraformer, or is it meant to be kind of like a preview of the direction that Thank You Scientist is going into?
no, it was more of a stopgap kind of thing. Like just the happenstance of how everything happened with lockdowns. We put out Terraformer, and we pretty much couldn't really. We got one tour, one U.S. tour out of it, and then the whole world shut down. And we put out 90 minutes of music at once. It was a lot. We were hoping we could allow people to experience it live, and it just didn't work out that way. So we figured, well, when we're coming out, let's try to get a little something extra for everybody to hold them over till the next one. And that was the plan with Plague Accommodations. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's
funny.
all the stuff we wrote during that period.
Yeah, and I remember you mentioned that last tour, the tour with Bent Knee, where you played at Mercury Lounge. I was actually interviewing Bent Knee at that particular show, but I couldn't stay because there was three other shows. But I don't know if you know this, memorizing dates is kind of like a specialty for me, and you played on the exact
Okay.
same date yesterday as you did on that tour.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yep.
I wish I had that good recall. I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
To each their own. Well, I've always noticed that Thank You Scientists music is very experimental. I mean, from having prog tendencies to some post rock to even like somebody once said that like a Thank You Scientist is almost kind of like a ska between the Buried and Me in a way sometimes. But like it's fair to say that like trying new things has always been part of Thank You Scientists, from maps of non-existent places to Stranger Heads Prevail, etc. Right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think our main thing is really just trying to do things that we think are fun too. We're never going to play something that we don't think is fun, or we don't, that doesn't get our rocks off. So I guess that is part of the thing. Is just we're almost lucky in that position where I feel like our fans. Um, oh, sorry about that. I got a phone call.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, I think our fans really don't have any. I feel like they wouldn't be surprised if we put out a polka record. They would give it a shot. You know what I mean? I think we just we're lucky in that we put ourselves in a position where I feel comfortable enough to try anything, and I feel like people will give it a shot.
Yeah. Well, does it ever start off with a preconceived idea of what you want it to sound like? Like, I mean, because you have so many different elements, or do you all just kind of like throw everything together in at once?
Yeah, it's kind of just by instinct, kind of what we think feels good, and it sort of comes together, and hopefully at the end of the day, it's fulfilling some sort of niche that isn't fulfilled by someone else. I mean, that I guess in terms of concept, it's that's my main thing, is just really trying to create something that maybe, that isn't fulfilled by some other artist out there in some way, and just have something that is, uniquely ours in some way. And that's always the goal. So it's not necessarily to sound weird, but really just create freely in a way that is just fun for us. And I think when you do that, natural byproduct is something that's going to be a little more personal, a little different.
Hmm. And I mean, because every time I interview a band, I always ask the cliche question, what does each song always start with? But like, I can't picture Thank You Scientist without the unique vocal style, without the guitar sound, and with its orchestral and brass and woodwind elements. It is almost kind of like a symphony. Does it ever start off the same way, or has every song been sort of like its own approach?
Every song is totally different. Yeah, yeah. It really depends on the tune and the demands of the tune. They all start differently. Some of them, are totally all of us in a room just hashing out ideas and passing the ball back and forth. Some of them are, written ahead of time and bringing in music. Some of them are coming up with like a rough demo and bringing it to everybody, and then saying, okay, what can we do to this thing to make it cool and finish it off? Really, really depends. We don't stick to any tried and true methodology or anything like that.
Yeah, and it shows in the music, and I could tell that you guys totally wing it. And what I find unique is because of your guitar styling as well, because there's some aspects that are traditional electric guitar, but there, you have some like fretless aspects for it as well. I mean, like, do you have like a theoretical element that applies to your guitar playing? Because when I hear the music, it almost does kind of sound studied in a way.
Well, I mean, I have a degree in music. I have a degree in jazz guitar, and I study classical guitar, and I would say I would I'm a somewhat studied musician. Like I know my stuff as much as I can. I'm always trying to learn more. Um, in terms of theory, on the thing is when it comes to writing or improvising, it's like I don't really think of the theory side as much. I think of it as a communicative thing more than anything, and theory is a way to sort of explain or understand certain sonic things that you like, certain sounds and colors. That's where theory comes in handy. If I want a particular color, I can picture the chord that I want and how I want it voiced. That's where theory comes in. But really, it at a performance level, if I'm improvising or playing a solo, it really just comes down to trying to just communicate in a more just like we're having right now. It's very conversational. I don't think of music any differently than that.
Mm. Well, has each riff or solo been reflective of kind of like an emotion that you were feeling, like, or do you prefer to maybe have like some background music to know like what key to play in and stuff?
Well, I improvise the solos, so it really depends on the mood of the moment, I guess. um, but I mean, I'm acutely aware of obviously of all those things. What are the chords I'm playing over? What key am I in? All those things. That's kind of second nature. That's sort of the building blocks of music that is just there. You don't. I mean, I don't really think about it at this point. It just sort of it's like a bell dings off in my head or something, and I know. I just hear what it is.
Hmm.
It's hard to explain.
Yeah. Now, in addition to having just such a fun performance, though, you guys have the greatest sense of humor I've ever seen live. Like last night, I don't recall an audience really like laughing as much as they were cheering going along with the audience, and that's not an easy thing to do. I Nothing hurts more for me than watching a front man like say a joke or something like that on stage and you just hear crickets. But like, so I love how you guys also have fun with what you do. But when you are in songwriting mode, is it almost kind of like you have to be more focused and you have to kind of like be a little bit more serious in order to execute your style?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's definitely like it's rehearsal intensive music. We have to work really hard to get it to translate live and get it to sound good and all that stuff. But yeah, I think we take the music seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously. So we're you know, I I think and a lot of artists that I like that I grew up really enjoying, were guys who knew how to mix humor and music in a way that was really cool and wasn't kitschy. And I think that's maybe a thing that people respond to about us is that we're not trying to put up a front like we're these mysterious guys. We're just a bunch of fucking goofballs. We take the music seriously, but uh, we're constantly joking around. And yeah, Sal's a great frontman like that. He's just off. He's very very good off the cuff. You just let him do his thing, and yeah, he'll usually get a couple laughs out of people.
Yeah. Well, it's always the most technically impressive bands I know that are always the funniest. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the death metal band Archspire, but those guys are like the greatest goofballs in metal history. In fact, I think if you guys were touring together, it could be marketed as a comedy tour as much as it's like a musical tour. So like
Awesome.
I guess there's something to be said about having a sense of humor just with playing an instrument. I guess it may help the
Yeah,
technical.
yeah. I just think we don't really try to make a front about who we are. You know, we just like we're the same guys on stage as we are off. So, um, you know, that's we're just a bunch of goofballs from Jersey. You know.
Yeah, bunch of goofballs from Jersey. I love it. Um, but because like, and for some reason, one thing I was always curious about is because the first time I saw you, you were headlining, you were playing with Bent Knee, which has like a post-hardcore, metal audience, and Intervals too has like that Animals as Leaders and that metal following. But I don't think you need to be a metalhead to really appreciate Thank You Scientists. I was wondering like when you guys sort of like started in New Jersey, were you like playing like the hardcore scene that was there, or were you kind of like always the standout in a way?
Yeah, I mean, our early days, we were definitely the oddballs on the shows. You know, we would play a lot of like metal shows, a lot of hardcore shows, a lot of when we were coming up, the big thing was like metalcore and stuff like that. Uh, and every band had that kind of sound. So we were definitely like probably mocked and laughed at quite a bit. But yeah, but I think it worked to our advantage because also as the years have gone on, we were able to play with a lot, you know, in front of a lot of different audiences and with a lot of different artists, kind of all over the map, and we could sort of tailor our set list to the situation that we're playing in because we do a lot of stuff. We all play jazz and classical music and improvise and um, you know, like you said, we can joke around and fuck around. So, yeah, I think that kind of allows us to be sort of chameleon like in who we can play with. But the early days, um, just because the preponderance of like metal and hardcore bands, that's generally who we played with. And I think a lot of times, you know, people saw us setting up or stuff and assumed we would be a ska band and then would be, you know, su- either pleasantly or unpleasantly surprised when we started playing. But
Well, I mean, like when you were playing, like in the early days, or maybe even now when you tour too, because like I guess maybe like the sound guys or whatever, or the crew would like expect, okay, this is a metal show, so guitars, bass, drums, a loud PA system, and then they see you guys coming with the trumpets and the violins and the woodwinds and stuff. Are they kind of like, do you thrown off quite a bit of sound guys back in the day?
uh, for sure. I mean, I think annoyed is the more operative word. You know, like showing up to those gigs in the early days, small gigs with our huge band and all these instruments. You're definitely not the sound guy's friend. But usually by the end of the set, we befriend the sound guy. That's usually how it goes. They hate us in the beginning for the setup, and then they learn to like us by the end of it.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, there's also a lot to celebrate for Thank You Scientists because this is for a lot of your fans the 10-year anniversary that they may have first heard of you because we got the it's the 10-year anniversary of the Perils of Time travel. And obviously, we're just getting our feet wet again with the touring and everything, but was there maybe sort of like a celebratory moment or maybe even just for a throwback, what was the mindset when the band like kind of first started in a way with the making of that EP? Oh, and by the way, for anybody watching, I'm calling from the tour bus now, so there's no earthquake happening if that's what you're wondering.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Although we did drive through those tornadoes in Kentucky the other day, we were like right in the thick of it.
Wow.
Yeah, parallel time travel. It's crazy to think that that was 10 years ago. I mean, that was pretty much our demo. We recorded that with one of my guitar students, and half in my parents' living room and half in his basement. And yeah, that was pretty much our demo, and it got a lot more attention than we thought it might have, and it's just sort of kind of stuck around. But you know, our ethos hasn't changed much since those early days, and uh, yeah, it's funny to listen to those songs now. They're kind of embarrassing, but you know, some of the riffs on that record were around since I was 16 years old. So you know, you know, embarrassing stuff in certain regards, but you know, it's also cool. You know, all records are a time capsule, and I look fondly back upon those times. They were funny times.
Yeah. Well, has music always been like when you look at your catalog? Has it always been like a like maybe a good representation of who you and everybody in the band is at that time? Do you look at each album as a self portrait, or has every album? Because I could tell on how lost you guys get when you play the music live and how much you get into it. Have you always just looked at music as more of like an escapism?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. For me, yeah, it sort of took over the void for me that like maybe video games take over for some people, where it's like, in music you can kind of create your own world and create your own, imagery for people to sort of live in for that, 60 minutes, however long an album is. In the case of Perils of Time Travel, I guess it was closer to the half an hour, but um, yeah, um, I think that's a huge part of what appeals to people in general about music is the escapism and allowing you to forget about all your problems for a little bit. And it's cool when you could be the curator of that world. It's a very powerful thing.
Definitely. And here comes the most difficult question of the interview. How do you know when a song is done?
Ah, when you tell yourself to stop. Yeah, you could work on it. I mean, if I always say this, but if left to my own devices, I would probably be still working on my first song if I didn't have a deadline. So really, I mean, a song's never going to be perfect. You could always change something. So at a certain point, you have to draw a line in the sand and say this is it. Um, for guys like me, I'm a nonstop tweaker, so I can keep on tweaking things if you give me the opportunity. So it's better you tell me to this is the deadline. This is where it needs to be done. Otherwise, I have one of those minds that will just keep on, changing, refining, probably not making better, but whatever.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And yeah, because also every song has so many layers as well. It's I feel like you can almost do an experiment where you take one Thank You Scientist song and you could just say, okay, here's what it would be like without trumpets, or here's what it would be like without woodwinds, here's what it would be like without orchestra, and it could almost change the whole context of the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're written in a very orchestrational way. Like, everybody, even the parts that are, sort of, secondary or tertiary parts are all an important part of the puzzle, and how we build the harmony together. So, yeah, everything's sort of a vital component. There's a lot of moving parts to the whole thing, and a lot of subtle gestures that make sort of a big difference, and then a lot of obviously larger musical gestures that are very obvious. But yeah.
Is there maybe a similar energy that you put into playing live as you do when you're songwriting, or do you consider playing live and songwriting two completely separate hats?
Yeah, I feel like they're kind of separate. The live performance seems like a celebration to me, and the writing and composition definitely falls more into the work side of things. Although it's still using your imagination, but like we're very meticulous, so it's yeah. I feel like for me, live is like the celebratory kind of fun moment, and the writing is like the you know sometimes pulling your hair out, but it's you also like it.
Yeah. Well, because I like having this sort of like debate with artists in a way, because like when you're playing live, it's fun, there's atmosphere, there's joy, it's always expressive. But, in the end, when you boil it down, it is just taking a song on an album and replicating it in a live setting. So is there anything remotely creative about playing live?
Totally. I mean, you know well, there's an improvisational aspect when we solo. I find that to be very creatively rewarding. And there's also like the small micro musical gestures that we do together. Sort of the subtle, more conversational music things that happen as we're playing. If I hear Ben articulate something in a certain way on violin, I might try to mimic it, or I might hear Kevin play a cool fill in my comping rhythm on guitar that I'm playing. That might inspire me to play something in a certain way. So there's that conversational aspect of music that's very creative um, when you're playing live. So yeah, they're just, they're different beasts, but yeah, hopefully that answers, a little rambling, but hopefully that answers your question.
I love it when the artists ramble. And that was just before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today, and I'm glad you're okay. You told me that you drove through those tornadoes. What did you guys see that tornado?
Well, so we were playing in Nashville, and the tornado alarm started going off, and we were following the weather and all, and we had to drive through Kentucky to the next show. So um, I think I was asleep through the thick of it, but our drivers saw tons of stuff, semis overturned, stuff ripped apart. We were probably a half an hour away from being really like in up shit's creek, so to speak. Um, but yeah, I mean, we were lucky looking at the aftermath the day after. We couldn't believe it. It was all over the news. It was just, yeah, largest tornado in the history of Kentucky, which we were right
Yeah.
going through. It's really feel for those people. It's really terrifying. And there was really not too much warning. Like we were in Nashville, we were walking around. It was like a beautiful day. The Weather Channel said chance of rain. And then by the time we got out of our show, it's like there's sirens going off and shit. It was wild.
Yeah,
Crazy.
we kind of like got and obviously not to compare what we went through to what happened down there, but like we got like the outskirts or like the aftershocks of that wind. Like it was so fucking windy on Saturday, and like the rain
I
was
bet.
like sideways. So like, we got a taste, but not nearly as bad. I'm just glad you all are okay.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just that reminder. No matter how powerful humans think they are, we're no match for Mother Nature. That's for sure.
Yep, and we
Blink
definitely.
of an eye, everything can change. It's kind of crazy.
Yep, and we definitely learned that for the last almost 2 years. But is there just anything else with Thank You Scientists that you would like to plug after this tour with intervals?
Um, just we are a totally independent band now. We run our own label. All of our music is going to be going through our own label. We rely on fan support 100% to make it happen. So I would just want to thank everybody for checking out our music. Thank you for getting more eyes on our music and checking out our show, and just let people know that we're super appreciative of all the support, because as I needn't talk about streaming and all those things that make it tough for artists nowadays to survive. So we're just very grateful that we have people like you and fans that actually come out to see us live, and it's great. We're very lucky, and we just want to say thank you to all those people. We have great fans who are really supportive. So
Yeah.
we would not be able to keep the train moving, so to speak, without them. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
we thank you for giving us all this great music. That's just such a fun and joy to listen to. We definitely needed the release yesterday. That was just,
Oh, I'm so glad, man. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it.
yeah.
That's the one thing that doing this tour was like really felt really good, because it felt like people needed it just as much as we needed it, and it was like a mutual sort of thing. It was really good.
Yeah, I mean, it was just all positivity and, just all the energy. They say metal can't be positive. You're now the first band I suggest for people to listen to prove them wrong.
Hey, now I'll take that. Yeah, it's great.
But thank you so much, Tom. Everybody, we are here with Thank You Scientists. Be sure to check out the Plague Accommodations EP and their last full length album, Terraformer. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York.